you kill the president?
No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about it was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question.
You have been charged.
Lee Harvey Oswald is a name forever linked to one of the darkest days in American history, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. As the alleged lone gunman in Dealey Plaza on November 22, 1963, Oswald became the central figure in a story that continues to inspire intense debate, endless speculation, and a host of conspiracy theories. Today, we'll explore 7 compelling reasons why many believe Lee Harvey Oswald was innocent in the assassination of JFK. The rifle that didn't fit the crime.
I positively know nothing about this situation here. I would like to have legal representation. Well, I was questioned by a judge. However, I posted at that time that I was not allowed legal representation during that very short and sweet hearing. I really don't know what the situation is about. Nobody has told me anything except that I'm accused of murdering a policeman. I know nothing more than that.
One of the first red flags raised by skeptics of Oswald's guilt involves the rifle allegedly used to kill President Kennedy. The Mannlicher-Carcano rifle, found on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, was quickly tied to Oswald, but experts have raised serious questions about its reliability. Firearms specialists have pointed out that the bolt-action weapon is cumbersome and difficult to fire rapidly with accuracy. Yet the official narrative claims Oswald fired 3 shots in under 6 seconds, hitting a moving target with deadly precision. Even more suspicious are the inconsistencies surrounding the rifle itself. According to photographic evidence, Oswald was seen holding a rifle in his backyard, but critics argue the weapon in the photo doesn't match the Carcano. Some researchers have suggested the rifle photo may have been doctored, noting oddities in the lighting and proportions. And no fingerprints of Oswald were found on the weapon until days later under highly questionable circumstances. The Warren Commission relied heavily on the rifle's connection to Oswald to support the lone gunman theory. The unlikely shooting position.
Real quick, I'd like to enter into the record a document that was actually one of these declassified documents of the CIA rejecting the lone gunman theory.
Another point frequently raised in Oswald's defense is the actual location from which the shots were allegedly fired. Oswald was said to have been in the 6th floor southeast corner window of the Texas School Book Depository, but witnesses and forensic reconstructions have shown this was not the most logical or effective vantage point for a skilled shooter to target a moving motorcade. Dealey Plaza was a well-documented crime scene, and many experts have recreated the event using computer simulations and first-hand analysis. These reconstructions often conclude that a shooter from the 6th floor would have faced significant visual and physical obstructions, including tree branches and signage, especially during the first few seconds of the shooting. Yet the shots that struck Kennedy appear to come from angles more consistent with a frontal or side shot, not from behind as the official story suggests. Numerous eyewitnesses on the ground also reported hearing shots from the grassy knoll rather than from the book depository. The directionality of the sound and the reactions of the crowd, many of whom rushed toward the knoll instead of the building, have long been cited as evidence that at least one shooter was elsewhere. All these details have contributed to a growing body of thought that Oswald simply wasn't in the right place or position to carry out the shooting alone. The strange timeline of the Tippit murder.
Tippit had called him over to the car door. He leaned in and talked to him, they said, for a few seconds, and then Tippit got out and started walking around the front of the car to get to him, and Oswald stepped back 2 or 3 feet, and when Tippit got to the left front fender of the car, Oswald pulled out his pistol and went into that Marine stance that he'd been taught, and then just bang, 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 bang 4 times, just like that. He didn't move his gun up and down, he had left it steady. And so the first shot that hit Tippit was low along the belt area, and the next one a little higher. We went forward with the first shot, and he was starting turning to his left, and the bullet walked on up his body as he fell. When he was going down, he fell on his left side, and as he went down, his head passed the line of view, line of shots, and the bullet hit him in the temple and come out the top.
Oswald was apprehended not for killing JFK, but for the murder of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit. According to police reports, Tippit was shot around 1:15 p.m., and Oswald was picked up at the Texas Theater shortly afterward. However, multiple timelines conflict when trying to place Oswald at the scene of Tippit's murder in the short window of time available. Some witnesses have claimed to have seen Tippit speaking to a man who did not match Oswald's description shortly before the shooting. Others stated Oswald was already at the theater at the time Tippit was killed. This has led to speculation that Oswald was being framed or was intended to be eliminated as part of a larger cover-up. Adding to the confusion, the shell casings found at the Tippit crime scene reportedly did not match Oswald's revolver, and there were conflicting reports about how many shooters were involved. The polygraph and voice stress test evidence. While Oswald was never given a polygraph test, various forms of modern analysis have been applied to his speech and behavior during his brief time in custody. One of the most discussed is the application of voice stress analysis to Oswald's recorded interviews and statements. These tools, often used in law enforcement today, are designed to detect deception through vocal tone patterns. Several independent studies using Oswald's televised statements, such as his famous "I'm just a patsy" comment, have been examined using these technologies. Analysts claim that his voice did not exhibit the stress patterns typical of someone lying. In other words, Oswald may have genuinely believed what he was saying. Furthermore, the way Oswald handled questioning has intrigued psychologists and profilers for years. He remained remarkably calm, repeatedly denied any involvement, and never confessed even when faced with overwhelming pressure. Unlike many suspects who eventually break under interrogation, Oswald held to his story until the end, reinforcing the belief held by some that he was innocent. The lack of motive and connections.
No, sir, I'm not a communist, and I think that the red herring and so forth is rather ridiculous to toss into this conversation.
Then are you a Marxist?
Well, I have studied Marxist philosophy, yes, sir, and also other philosophers.
But are you a Marxist? I think you did admit on an earlier radio interview that you consider yourself a Marxist.
Well, I would very definitely say that I am a Marxist. That is correct.
Prosecutors and investigators are often guided by the question of motive. Why would someone commit such a monumental crime? In Oswald's case, the official narrative paints him as a disgruntled loner with radical political leanings. But when examined closely, his motives become murky at best. Oswald had a history of supporting both far-left and far-right ideologies at different times, which has led to confusion over his true political stance. His supposed sympathy for Castro's Cuba has been cited as a reason for wanting Kennedy dead. But this theory overlooks Kennedy's back-channel negotiations with Castro towards normalization, which might have actually appealed to Oswald. If he was a passionate Marxist, the notion of killing a president quietly working towards peace with communist nations seems inconsistent. His mysterious connections to intelligence agencies further complicate the picture. Oswald's time in the Soviet Union, his strange re-entry into the U.S., and his odd interactions with various pro- and anti-Castro figures in New Orleans suggests he may have been used or monitored by intelligence agencies. Eyewitness contradictions and forgotten testimonies.
Here he is. Here he comes. Now the prisoner wearing the white spider change from his t-shirt.
Let me have it. I want it.
Being let out by Captain Fritz. There is the prisoner.
There is Lee. He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.
Much of the case against Oswald relies on official testimony presented to the Warren Commission. However, many eyewitnesses to the events of that day offered statements that contradicted the Commission's findings or were left out altogether. Over time, researchers have uncovered accounts from individuals who described hearing gunfire from multiple directions, seeing suspicious individuals not matching Oswald's description, and witnessing strange behavior from law enforcement. One of the most cited examples is the testimony of Jean Hill, who stood near the motorcade route and insisted she heard 4 to 6 shots, not 3. Hill also claimed to see a man running from the grassy knoll immediately after the shots were fired. Other witnesses described men with radios or suits acting oddly near the knoll just before the shooting, suggesting coordination rather than a lone act. The Warren Commission's report largely dismissed these conflicting accounts in favor of a streamlined narrative. But later investigations, including the House Select Committee on Assassinations in the 70s, acknowledged the probability of a conspiracy based on acoustic evidence. Oswald's own behavior and statements. Finally, Oswald's own words and actions in the 48 hours following the assassination offer some of the most compelling reasons to doubt his guilt. Upon his arrest, he denied all accusations and asked for legal representation, a standard move, but one underscored by his repeated statements that he didn't know what was going on. His repeated phrase, "I'm just a patsy," became iconic and has fueled alternative theories ever since. He seemed genuinely shocked by the charges being leveled against him. According to police and media interviews, he cooperated to some extent, but consistently denied any involvement. He didn't attempt to flee the country or destroy evidence. His behavior was erratic, but not consistent with someone who had just pulled off the crime of the century. He appeared calm, lucid, and confused more than anything else. After being shot by Jack Ruby in police custody, Oswald never got a chance to fully defend himself in court. Now it's time to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these takes? Let us know in the comments section below.